All right, nice way to open up our service today. So, we want to welcome back Reverend Lily Boyles with us today. And of course, she is no stranger to our community. So, we're very excited to have her back to share her perspective and knowledge about her talk today, which is Releasing for Peace. And Reverend Lily Boyles grew up in Unity and was ordained from UWSI in 2022. She has a BA in Religious Studies and Sociology from the University of New Mexico. And she's, of course, pursued her clinical pastoral education at the University of Kansas Health System in KCK. And of course, she graduated last May. So great job, Lily. We're so grateful to have you here with us this morning, and we look forward to you sharing the talk that you've prepared for us today. So without further ado, Lily, the floor is now yours.
Absolutely. Good morning. Thank you for having me back. I'm glad to hear some people liked that song. David Roth is a musical artist that I saw in my home church of Unity in Albuquerque growing up, and it's still one of the sweetest memories to remember him in concert. And so whenever I can pull from him, I think he is a wise voice for me. And that song really encapsulates what I want to dive into today, which is all about releasing. And I think in his song, he does such a beautiful job of saying, what is releasing doing for my good? And how can I approach it? Not from a place of saying, I'm not afraid of it. He acknowledges that he was afraid of this very human thing, but being able to say, I'm afraid, and yet I can move past that and I can release. And how is that moving towards my wholeness? How is that moving towards my peace? In the way of being a Unity student, growing up in Unity, one of the things that always happened around the first of a change of month was a new 12 powers. That was always the topic of my Sunday school. And so if you know the 12 powers and you know them by month, you might know that November is the 12th power of release or elimination or renunciation. And so that's kind of what I wanted to bring in. It felt very natural to just say, this is the time. The leaves are falling. That is a very obvious way to see release around my neck of the woods. But being able to say, not just for the world around me, but for the world within me, what is there for me to look at, to be human in, and say, this no longer serves me. One of the things that I get to see a lot in my work as a hospital chaplain is when things might go askew. There might be a diagnosis we don't expect. There might be an injury that derails our life. There might be a lot of uncertainty presented with a lot of questions and not many answers. The hope I always have is to say, how can we find peace amidst all of this? Not saying I'm going to deny all the reality of this, but in addition to the chaos, how can we find a little bit of peace? I think there is a deep human need, especially when it comes to evaluating life, evaluating our time in this world, that I want to be at peace when I go to whatever is next for me. And that is a deep and profound work that I get to sit in as a hospital chaplain alongside people. But I also think it is a deeply human thing that we can do together in community, is being able to say, what about the way that I was raised? What about the belief system I have done work within to say, this no longer serves me? And how is that going to be a very human and spiritual process of release to find peace? One of the authors that I always pull back to from the Unity movement is Reverend Linda Martella-Whitsett. And she brings out a point that I wanted to honor because I think it's sometimes part of the piece of denial, which is going to be one of the tools that we talk about today. Spiritual denial, she says, is not the same thing as the psychological term that means refusing or facing reality. We never suggest denying the facts or glossing over the feelings when we're talking about denials. Part of the fourth unity principle is utilizing the power of the word, which is all about being able to deny what no longer serves me, what is no longer true, and shift into an affirmation of the truth of who I am. And so the process of denial was one of the things that was really important for the Fillmores because they knew moving from a space that did not serve them was part of their collective growth. Charles Fillmore explains it is just as necessary that one should learn to let go of thoughts, conditions, and substances in consciousness, body, and affairs when they have served their purpose. And one no longer needs them. As it is, they should lay hold of new ideas and new substances to meet one's daily requirements. One of the stories of Unity's creation was Myrtle Fillmore getting a tuberculosis diagnosis and moving through the healing process of many years of talking to her body and doing the work of healing. Part of Myrtle's journey is saying, I am not taking the diagnosis on as the truth of who I am, but instead I am knowing the truth of who I am, and each day in practice, I am going through and telling my body that it is whole and I am whole. And the piece I appreciate about Fillmore, as well as Linda Martella Whitsett, is being able to say that it is thoughts, conditions, substances that and feelings that no longer serve us. Sometimes I think in spirituality, we want to say, oh, I just want to get into my heart, or I just want to be able to shift from my head to my heart. But man, those pieces of being human, all those thoughts and feelings, they have power over us. They are part of our humanity that we are working in, and I see them as incredible messengers. Part of the act of release, part of the work of utilizing a denial as a tool, is not saying that no longer serves me, and then still talking about it for months ad nauseum, because that still has power over you if it's still occupying your brain space. An example of a denial might be, my value is not defined by my work. And knowing that in the experience of being laid off from a job, very similar to a friend of mine that were having this conversation this week, your value is all that you are and is not attached to something we produce or something that can be taken from us. The truth of who this person is does not change with a job title or an external force, but it is being able to say, the internal truth of who I am continues regardless of external. The work of denial is getting in alignment to the internal and the external. Because my value may not be defined by my work, but I am whole and prosperous, and the world is abundant coming towards me in my time. That is a denial and an affirmation that often work in tandem. Affirmations are something that feel better to me. I love to be able to give an affirmation. I'm a strong and capable child of the universe. I am powerful and have all that I need. But if I'm not making space for that truth, if I'm still holding on to things that no longer serve me, I'm not allowing an affirmation to move to its fullest extent. And so that work of being able to release in all ways for our mind, our body, and our spirit. Being able to honor the work, our humanity, in saying, what are the things I'm still holding on to? And taking the step in saying, they don't serve me. And so I will release fully. Paul Hasselbeck, who is a great author and teacher in the Unity movement, writes in Heart-Centered Metaphysics, thoughts and feelings can either support error or support divine ideas that results in effects at the same level of mind as well as the world around us. Using the power of thought to move the realization of wholeness from the body to the soul makes us one. Dr. Hasselbeck continues writing about the use of denials and affirmations as a way of cleansing and rebuilding the consciousness. Through the use of denials and affirmations, we believe that the belief or thought is examined and released if it no longer serves our highest good. And a statement of truth is planted in its place. He says the most effective way to construct a denial would be as though it's gently cleansing out cobwebs of the mind. I love that imagery of the things that are stuck up in here, the cobwebs that no longer serve me. I can gently cleanse them out. The idea of being able to train my mind, to adjust my consciousness, to see and know the truth of who I am, also means that I see and know the truth of who others are in their Christ consciousness, in their expression of the divine. Being able to sit in the hard spaces as a hospital chaplain gives me a really incredible opportunity to hear what others believe. So much of my job is just to be a listener, to be a non-judgmental force, to be a non-anxious presence. What I feel so uniquely prepared for in this work is the belief from Unity that I got to know from my infancy, that whatever you believe is for you. It's not mine to change. It's mine to offer curiosity about. It's mine to see you in your fullest expression. And it is also to say, what is mine is mine. For example, I was telling my mom this story yesterday, so Mom, sorry you have to hear it again. But I got to be on call and do some really profound soul work with a patient. And this patient was in her late 60s and shared with me that she had grown up Pentecostal and had a belief that was told to her by her church and her family system and the community that she was a part of, that she was born a sinner. And the work of her life was to be able to repair for those sins. And the sin that felt most present and most painful on her heart was that she was gay. And she had known it. But being in a rural Missouri Black community, in a church that did not see that as whole and perfect, but saw that as a sin, that separated her in this very profound way of not just feeling separated from her family, from her faith, but also from the truth of who she was. And I got to meet this person who had done a lot of work on themselves, that piece of upbringing she had left, but there was still some of these pieces of her life before that when she was looking at the scope of her life and the rest of her life, which was a shorter timeline, she was trying to figure out, so I've done a lot of this work to let go, but what do I replace it with? And so she called a chaplain, and I got to sit and hear the ways that she has said, I found love, and this is my partner of 25 years. And I know that I am not a sinner, and that my love in my life is not wrong. And that I know that I have found family that loves me. But man, when I go to bed, when I am afraid, the only prayers I have are the prayers of my childhood that tell me I'm a sinner. So what do I pray that doesn't believe that? And so being asked into this space as a chaplain is incredibly, it's a deep and profound honor. And a lot of times in my work, I don't offer answers because I believe we all have the answers within us. But she was really looking for new words that felt better for her. And so I offered to her the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. And the presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is. The truth of what I know, that I have been told and affirmed in my infancy from my birth, that you are perfect and whole, and God sees you as such. And so I offered her that prayer. And in the way of having it be in her full body, she got cozied up in her hospital bed and she said, okay, give that to me one more time. And she closed her eyes. And I said it again. And she said, oh, that feels good in my soul. And then she told her partner, okay, now it's your turn, write it down. So I just kept saying this, affirming the truth of what I know I am, as well as the truth of who I knew her to be. That was the work. She had made the space. She had released so much. She had done the work of being able to say, that no longer serves me, but I don't know what to fill in that space with. And I was so grateful for our belief system to be the thing that I could offer to her, the new words to try on for size. And I think there is so much power because if I had just said those words, but she was still holding on to the belief that I'm a sinner and the way that I love and the way that I lived is not okay, and who knows what's next based on what I was raised in, those probably would have fallen on deaf ears. But in the way of Spirit moving in and through and as each of us doing the work that is intrinsically ours, space is made when Spirit is ready to take another step and move in another way, in a true co-creation. That felt like one of those moments as a chaplain that I was in the full divine flow of God. And so just having in the coupling of this work of an on-call shift, thinking about this talk that I'm giving, listening to the David Roth song, I was reminded of the power of releasing. Because the things that I'm holding on to, they are heavy weights to hold. And sometimes I think, oh, it doesn't have that much sway over me. But when rubber meets the road, the things that I hold dear really come out. The things that I believe about myself are really true when I feel like I need to sort through what is mine to do. The power of a denial is that any belief that we have been harboring about the permanence of our circumstance or whatever we have to do is possible to resolve in this world. Linda Martella Whitsett offers being able to name something has power to shift something. So in the way of being able to take denials, it is a very honest and vulnerable piece. The question of what are things that in my life that are still blocking my peace? What have I not fully released? What still is a heavy weight I am carrying? Being able to say that, to put words to it, to say, it's not just this abstract thing that has all these impacts on my life, but being able to say, I'm still holding on to that thing that I heard when I was young about I should be able to perform, and that will make you love me. Or being able to hear that children should not be heard, and how has that impacted the spaces that I have not spoken up? Or that I come from a lineage of people, and that is my only identity. What are those things that in the development of ourselves, we might be holding on to? That's part of the work that I get to sit in as a chaplain. We call that deliberative theology. The things that we were given about ourselves, about God, about the world, about humanity, that I was given that I haven't maybe examined. And the work of examination shifts a belief from a deliberative theology to an embedded theology to a deliberative theology. So what's embedded in us, what was given to us, I can examine and say, does this still work for me? And if it doesn't, I can utilize denials to release. And that doesn't mean that anything that is embedded in our theology, embedded in our mind doesn't work for us. One of the things that was embedded for me is that I'm a perfect child of God. That is something that was given to me by my church community growing up and still works for me. It's the act of being able to examine, to be honest, to ask the sole question: is this a belief that serves my highest good? Is this a belief for my wholeness? And if yes, then pass go, collect $200. And if not, can I be able to be specific in my language and fully release, utilizing a denial? There is so much about being human in this world that at times makes me feel powerless. You know, earlier this morning, Dan and Kyle were talking a little bit about politics and how it feels operating in this world. Man, turning on the news, that makes me feel so human because I am looking at people and I'm saying, how is that for our highest good? And being able to say, I am not going to slip into this belief of saying, I will just tune out, or I will make you my victim, or I will say you are the bad guy doing the bad thing and distancing my humanity from yours. But how can I say, what are the pieces that are mine to do? What is the belief that tells me you are separate from me and therefore you are bad, when I also hold the belief that you are a perfect child of God? I want to choose the hard work of seeing your divinity and trying to understand. I'm not saying that's easy. By golly, I turn off the news and I exit the conversation more times than I care to. But how can I say the belief I hold to be true, the deliberative piece of my theology, is that you are good at your core? And how can I do the work internally to know that I am good and therefore you are good? That, I think, is the call of my soul. That is the call of doing this work in community, is being able to say, these things that we have held dear, that I have held dear, that I thought was so true, how can I realize that that has shifted? The piece that I appreciate and the piece that I want to hold up for us in closing is that we walk this tightrope of fully human and fully divine. Unity offers us that duality and that fullness. And so, how is there a uniting of my humanity that acknowledges the fear and the anger and the powerless feeling that all can be true, with the belief in spirit as an abundant, fully true source in my life that I also have a piece of in me, which means I am responsible for? How can I hold my humanity and my divinity up to say, you are all pieces of me? And so in this work of release, it is not an abandoning of our humanity, it is an integrating of our humanity, fully underpinned by our spiritual principles. In the way of being able to release, that means that I am, my North Star is so clear in the way of being able to know what is mine and move towards that, knowing that whenever I am moving in the direction made for me, co-created for me by spirit, with spirit, as spirit, it will be easy and it will be good and it will be whole and it will be peace filled. I want us to do a little exercise before we go into a meditation. So if you have a pen or paper, or if you just want to think it, or if you have a tablet you'd like to type in, I want to offer you the question of getting specific with your language about one belief that you are ready to release. It might be something that is very evident to you. You might need a minute to be able to think about what is something about myself, about another, about the world, about God that no longer serves me. And so write that down or think that clearly or type that out. And so whatever that is, I invite you to just hold that present. We're going to shift into meditation. And throughout that meditation, I'm going to allow you to connect with your spirit to get clear about the words for your denial and get clear in a denial that then you will say to yourself, do the work of release, whatever that looks like. And then we're going to end in a creating of an affirmation. So, wherever you are and whatever your space is, I invite you to just get comfortable. If it serves you to close your eyes, I invite you to do so. And just connect in with your body, taking some centering breaths. Acknowledging any thoughts that might be present in your mind, any pieces that might be present in your heart, and anything that might be happening in your body. Just allow it to be. And so as you continue to breathe, you can just find the rhythm of that breath that works for you. And whatever that belief was that you are ready to release, I invite you to bring it forward in your mind or read it or look at it. And I invite you to put words to a denial to be able to release. It might sound something like, I release the idea that there's not enough in this world. Or that the belief of a physical limitation has no hold on me. Whatever the words are for you, allow them to flow. Being able to acknowledge that at one point, this served me, and it does not anymore. And so, whatever that belief is, whatever that denial is, I invite you to take a moment and to say thank you to it. Thank you that it came up to be seen today. Thank you for the service it did to you at some point. And now I invite you to connect back in and take a deep breath out. Knowing that part of release is from our mind, our body, and our spirit. And so as we breathe, we begin the process of release. Saying that denial to ourselves. The belief I held no longer serves me. And have that denial just repeat as a flowing through you, a moving out of you, a removing of the cobweb in the mind. And so, since you have released, I invite you to honor the space that releasing this belief has made. And if there is an affirmation that feels true for you to fill this space that you have made with, I invite you to think about that. Write that down, type that out. It might sound something like, the body I have is made for all of my good. I am connected to a spirit of compassion, and I am compassionate. Whatever that affirmation is, whatever that truth of who you are, that belief that you are now holding, say that to yourself. Feel the truth of that in your body as you continue to breathe. And so, as you're ready, thank your affirmation, thank your new belief for coming up. Thank you, Spirit, for bringing me back to the truth of who I am. And as you're ready, I invite you to come back to this space, come back into your body. Thank you for being willing to do this work of release alongside me and for all of us, because we don't get through this world alone. And I'm so honored to do this work with you.
Thank you so much, Lily, for sharing all of that insight with us. My goodness, that was just fantastic. I mean, gosh, releasing. I mean, I have a whole new perspective on releasing now. So, thank you for sharing your insights. I mean, your talk was just so incredibly thought-provoking, and I'm sure each one of us, has our own things that we need to release, and it was just perfect for me. Is exactly what I needed today. So thank you for being here and for the insights that you shared with us. We appreciate you. So